I want to address 2 points in this video, and once and for all, dismantle and destroy the notion that religion, in relation to the belief in God, is a mind disorder or a delusional belief system worthy of being labeled a disorder. Aldous Huxley, a novelist, said this: "We have learnt that nothing is simple and rational except what we ourselves have invented, that God thinks in terms neither of Euclid nor of Riemann, that science has explained nothing, that the more we know, the more fantastic the world becomes, and the profounder the surrounding darkness." I believe that the more rational we try to become, the more irrational we see we actually are. And as this process takes place, some try to displace this on others and try to hold on to the feeling of security that they once had when believing that they were better and more rational than most. My first point is the definition that is being used in this series of videos can be interpreted many ways. If you want, check out Superexcellency's video, which I will have a link on the side. And he explains that the Rational Response Squad is simply cherry-picking the DSM. This is the DSM that they used. A false belief based on incorrect inference about external reality that is firmly sustained despite what almost everybody else believes, and despite what constitutes incontrovertible and obvious proof or evidence to the contrary. The belief is not one ordinarily accepted by other members of the person's culture or subculture. An example, it is not an article of religious faith. Now, the false belief could be denying or the lack of acknowledging that there is a God and a supernatural. Almost everyone else believes in a deity or a God or the supernatural of some form. 97.5% of the population, according to a poll taken in 2000. This means that only 2.5% are atheists. And therefore, this definition actually fits atheist a lot better than theist. People are constantly giving atheists good reasons to believe, and the atheists are constantly trying to dodge these arguments and act as if they mean nothing. My second point is about Albert Ellis. He is known for his extraordinary and remarkable advancements in psychology and is arguably the most influential psychologist since Freud. He was somewhat controversial, and a lot of his views weren't recognized until the 80s. Now, before we go any further, I want to say that no matter what we think of this man or of psychology as a whole, we can all admit that they have both helped people. Now, Ellis was among those that believed homosexuality was a disorder, and he didn't change this view until a little while after the American Psychiatric Association found it not to be a mental disease in 1973. He was, in fact, an atheist and believed strongly in his earlier years that religion would not work in his system of behavioral psychology. However, towards the end of his career, he changed his mind on this also. In 2000, he wrote an article in the Professional Psychology Research and Practice Journal titled, "Can Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, REBT, be effectively used with people who have devout beliefs in God and religion?" Ellis describes the constructive philosophies of REBT and shows how they are similar to those of many religionists in regard to unconditional self-acceptance, high frustration tolerance, unconditional acceptance of others, the desire rather than the need for achievement and approval, and other mental health goals. He shows how REBT is compatible with some important religious views and can be used effectively with many clients who have absolutistic beliefs about God and religion. He says in his conclusion, and I quote, "Although I have in the past taken a negative attitude toward religion, and especially toward those who devoutly hold religious views, I now see that absolutistic religious views can sometimes lead to emotionally healthy behavior. As several studies have shown, Batson, 1993, Donahue, 1985, Gorsuch, 1988, Hood 1996, Kirkpatrick 1997, Larson and Larson 1994. People who view God as a warm, caring, and lovable friend, and who see the religion as supportive, are more likely to have a positive outcome than those who take a negative view of God and their religion. Now, throughout this article, Ellis attempts to restate some of the basic REBT philosophies in God-oriented form, so that people who tend to follow the teachings of REBT can presumably also hold absolutistic religious views that overlap with their religious concepts. One example from the appendix shows how the author restates an REBT philosophy of self-control, stated, "Because I often make myself undisciplined and self-defeating by demanding that I absolutely must have immediate gratifications, I can give up my short-range needs, look for the pleasure of today and tomorrow, and seek out life satisfactions in a disciplined way." Now, Ellis restates this belief in a comparable religious way. God gave me some degree of free will and the ability to think for myself and control myself, and I can, with God's help, use this ability to discipline myself. Another example of this is the REBT philosophy of high frustration tolerance. The original states, "Nothing is terrible or awful, only at worst highly inconvenient. I can stand serious frustrations and adversity, even though I never have to like them." He restates this again in a comparable religious way. "With God's help, I can weather the worst stress. If I worship God and uncomplainingly accept life's tribulations, I will cope better with them." He continues with this and restates all of his philosophies in a religious way. Ellis's contention is, therefore, that anyone who holds a loving God religious outlook can also be rational by REBT's definition, having self-helping beliefs, feelings, and behaviors. In this sense, REBT and devout religiosity are not the same, but they can at least at times be compatible. You can also find his changed views in The Road to Tolerance and a co-authored book titled Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, A Therapist's Guide. George Soros might have said it best. Once we realize that imperfect understanding is the human condition, there is no shame in being wrong, only in failing to correct our mistakes. You might want to consider that quote. RRS. Stay rational.